Our story begins in Willow Creek Camping Ground, somewhere in Montana. Gary Hampton was just attacked by a large animal, and his wife and daughter are freaking out. The ambulance arrives, but his chest is split wide open and blood is gushing everywhere. The story jumps to 1 month later, at St. Mercy Medical Center in New York City. Gary is in a coma and recuperating, while his wife, Rebecca, is watching over him. He wakes up from his coma and is surprised to see his wife is smoking again, after she quit a few years back. The medical staff comes inside and asks the wife to step outside while they check his health. At nighttime, there is a full moon, and something happens to Gary. He wakes up and jumps out the window, but something is wrong. He's fully transformed into a werewolf. His body is incredibly powerful, and even the concrete shatters beneath his powerful legs. He climbs on top of a building, where an old man was gardening his outdoor plants. The werewolf surprises and attacks him from behind, while the old man screams in fear. The next day, the doctors are in shock to see that his body was fully healed, and he didn't have any signs of injuries whatsoever. 1 month later, we learn that Gary is the owner of a successful company, and he and his family are very rich. His daughter, Chloe, comes home from tennis practice, claiming she's getting very good at the game, and the teacher is impressed with her skills. Gary is a well-known public figure, and ever since he made a full recovery, the media has been trying to get an exclusive interview with him, but he just wants to be left alone. The family is supposed to have dinner later, but in the meantime, he goes to his office to attend an important conference call with people from Asia. He talks to Mr. Hirok, trying to persuade him to merge their two companies together, but Hirok doesn't even want to hear about it. Before dinner, the father and daughter enjoy a private game of tennis, but Chloe wasn't lying when she said she was getting good at this, and kicks his ass. During the night, there is another full moon, and Gary wakes up suffocating. He changes into a werewolf once again, and then sneaks out the window in the middle of the night. He goes into the forest nearby to hunt, and sees a rabbit. He quickly catches him and devours it alive, satisfying his animal urges. In the morning, his wife is shocked to see that his underwear is destroyed, but they have no clue how it happened. Dunford, who is the estate manager and butler, shows him the security footage from last night, and they see the werewolf. Rebecca notices that he was wearing the same boxes as her husband, which means the werewolf is actually Gary. Somehow, a mysterious man managed to sneak inside their house, claiming he knows about the accident in Montana and what happened at the hospital. All of these incidents have happened exactly 1 month apart, exactly when there was a full moon. He's been keeping a close eye on Gary and wants to help him understand what exactly is happening to him. He is now a being of great power, but that power is raw. If left unchecked, it can even be dangerous. The man's name is Zechariah, and he claims he knows a thing or two about the supernatural. Gary agrees to work together with Zechariah, and his training begins immediately. In just a couple of weeks, he's been able to control his transformation, but he's still having a hard time adjusting to this body and how strong he is. But he still doesn't understand why Zechariah is helping him. What's his ulterior motive? Not even Rebecca trusts him. The old man claims he's a vampire, but he shouldn't believe everything he knows about vampires. He drinks blood, but not as frequently, and it doesn't always have to be human blood. Unlike him, Gary's actually won the supernatural lottery. His powers are much better than his. For instance, a werewolf doesn't have to drink blood, and with simple training he can transform at will during the night and control his wolf form. Plus, the transformation heals all the wounds he sustained in the previous form. That's why his injuries were healed in the hospital. Gary loves his new powers, but his wife isn't so thrilled about it. He sneaks out in the middle of the night, and it won't be long before someone realizes that he's the werewolf. Fortunately for him, every time he changes back into his human form, Gary is fully rested even if he spends the entire night as Wolf-Man, so basically, he doesn't need sleep anymore. In the morning, he goes to the construction site where he is building a hideout, something like Batman's Batcave. Zechariah used his mind control powers to trance the workers. Basically, they won't remember anything they built here, which will ensure the whole thing stays a secret. The next night, Wolf-Man goes into a burning building and rescues 2 kids. Unfortunately, there were lots of people around and everyone heard him speak. Someone probably even took pictures and videos of him. He and Zechariah visit Art Rosenbaum, an infamous tailor who makes costumes for superheroes. Gary likes the new suit. He doesn't look like a scary wolf anymore, and Rosenbaum even added a pair of special wrists, which store moonlight. With their help, he should be able to maintain his transformation even during daytime. Somewhere nearby, a group of heroes called the Actioneers are fighting a powerful villain named Spore. Spore is impossible to defeat because every time he gets attacked, his body creates another version of himself under his control. Gary joins the fight, and the Actioneers could really use the help, so everyone welcomes him. He introduces himself as Wolf-Man, and Kinetic is impressed with his skills, claiming he's kicking ass. During the fight, the heroes are able to separate Spore's head from the rest of the body and trap him inside a special container. leaving the clones to die out. Gary goes back home and Rebecca is waiting for him, wearing sexy lingerie. The two of them get it on in the bedroom, but while they are making love, he transforms into Wolf-Man and he loses all control. He runs from home and arrives in the city, but Sergeant Superior, one of the Actioneers members, wants to thank him for his help against Spore. But Gary is in a state of frenzy and he attacks the sergeant, stabbing him through the chest. Zechariah comes back after missing for 2 weeks and shows Gary the new car he built for them. Gary changes into his wolf form and attacks him, furious that he disappeared for 2 weeks without saying a word. He thought he could control Wolf-Man by now, but that night he killed Sergeant Superior, he lost control. This was just another test. Zechariah knew this would happen, but he wanted him to experience the freedom, the feeling of being out of control. He thought he'd stay on his property, maybe run through the woods and hunt some more rabbits. He still retained a bit of himself in that state. He could have never hurt Rebecca or Chloe. He knew they would be safe. This isn't the first time Gary has killed someone. He did it once before after waking up from a coma. According to Zechariah, once a month on the first night of the full moon, he loses all control and reverts back to the beast. The curse will take hold of him, and there is nothing he can do to stop this. He isn't responsible for his actions during that period, and Sergeant Superior's death isn't his fault. Zechariah took off the body and hid it somewhere nobody would find it. The two of them go on another mission together, spying on police bands and searching for a villain named Thrill Kill. This guy kidnapped a woman and was running through rooftops, but Gary finds them. Thrill Kill drops her off the edge of the building, claiming he's gonna escape when Wolf-Man tries to save her, but he was wrong, because Gary jumps toward him, pushing both of them off the edge and falling toward the ground. He smashes Thrill Kill's head against the wall, which knocks him unconscious, and then he tries to save the desperate woman. He saves her just moments before hitting the ground, and then escapes before the cops arrive. Wolf-Man goes back to the car where Zechariah was waiting, but something is wrong. A pack of werewolves were holding him hostage, while one of them calls Gary an elder brood. Wolf-Man easily deals with them, but gets injured in the fight. Zechariah uses his powers and transforms his body into smoke, allowing him to escape his attackers. The werewolves claim they didn't come here to challenge an elder brood, but they will be ready for him next time. Zechariah could have used his mist form at any time and escaped, but he wanted to keep that ability a secret. He's lived for a very long time and done some questionable things over the years, and even made some enemies. Those werewolves are one of them, but he can't explain more because the sun is coming up and he needs to get back to his hideout. Gary goes back home and tells his wife that his company isn't doing too great lately, so the board kicked him out. As if this isn't bad enough, Dunford informs him that there's a group of men at the door who refuse to leave, claiming he used company money to purchase this home and accusing him of tax evasion. The IRS is here to evict them from their house. Everything is crumbling down at once. Luckily, the hideout was complete, but in order to keep it a secret, Gary had to build a shopping center on top of it. Rebecca brings her daughter here, but Chloe claims the only thing more embarrassing than having to live at a hotel is having to do her shopping at a strip mall. However, once her mother shows her the secret elevator leading down to the basement, she changes her mind and thinks it's kinda cool. She had no idea this thing even existed and wants to bring her friends here as soon as possible. But her father says this place is a secret and she can't tell anyone about it. He decides to tell her the truth and transforms into Wolf-Man, but she is in complete shock and doesn't know what to say. Later that night, he and Zechariah go on another mission, listening to police radios and hoping to catch some bad guys. Out of nowhere, a pack of werewolves jumps him from behind, but he quickly gets up and gets into defensive position. One of the elder werewolves claims he is much stronger than them because he is elder brood, and one day he will be able to fight them all at once, but that time is not tonight. Gary wants to know why they keep calling him elder brood, and what it means, because Zechariah has been keeping some very important information from him. They all attack him at once, and even though Gary is very powerful and agile, he isn't a match for a combined attack. The older werewolf says that if only he knew what Zechariah is capable of, he wouldn't be helping him, he'd actually be the one hunting him. Zechariah comes to try and save him, asking Gary to revert back into his human form, which is gonna heal his wounds. He does so, and then instantly changes back, but it will take a few minutes to get his strength back up to 100%. The werewolves claim that Zechariah is also an elder brood, but his hunger for blood consumes him. Werewolf blood can sustain him for much longer than human blood, and one day he attacked his child and killed him. Zechariah claims the bloodthirst is much more severe than any curse their kind suffers. It almost takes over completely, and he succumbs to an uncontrollable bloodlust. He's nothing more than a rabid animal until he feeds. His actions were not his own, and he doesn't even remember doing it. They've been hunting him for years. That's why he wanted to become Gary's mentor. He wanted to find someone who could help him. Wolf-Man hears enough and attacks Zechariah, decapitating him with a swift blow. The older werewolf thanks him for helping them, saying his name is Jacobson, and tonight he's made a friend. But Zechariah wasn't killed. His body can survive even without his head, but he is severely weakened and needs to feed on blood. He accuses the werewolves of being hypocrites, claiming they become mindless beasts when the curse takes over them. But unlike him, they look forward to losing control and even enjoy it. Meanwhile, the Actioneers find security footage of Wolf-Man killing Sergeant Superior and realize he isn't the friend they thought he was. Zechariah goes back to his hideout and desperately needs to feed on blood, but when he opens a secret door, we see that Sergeant Superior is still alive. He was being kept prisoner by Zechariah, who claims he could really use a drink. In the offices of the Tribune newspaper, the writers are getting ready to publish an article on Wolf-Man, but they aren't sure if he's a hero or a killer. Out of nowhere, a villain breaks through the walls, claiming he wants to kill them for getting his name wrong in the papers. He calls himself Eruptor, but they've been calling him Erector for months now and he's become a laughingstock. Wolf-Man comes to the rescue, accusing him of causing too much noise. Eruptor attacks him with fire shooting from his hands, but Gary dodges his attacks with ease. He then grabs him by the hands and throws him to the other building, which knocks him unconscious. He then goes back to make sure the reporters are okay, and one of them wants to ask him a few questions. The next morning, Rebecca is reading the newspaper, which paints him as a hero. It seems that interview did good for his image. It's almost that time of the month when he loses control, but Gary says he's prepared to deal with it. Somewhere else, a villain named Vault is fighting the Actioneers, calling them pathetic and unorganized. But they were merely keeping him busy, while Mecha Maid attacks him from behind, and she's able to hack his systems. She then reprograms his armor and forces him to walk to the nearest police station and turn himself in. They've also read the newspapers and wonder if they should release the footage of Wolf-Man killing Sergeant Superior, but Kinetic thinks that's a bad idea. Other superhero teams such as Capes Incorporated or even the Guardians of the Globe might go after him, and they want to take him down themselves. Zechariah tells him the truth about Elder Broods, claiming they are the oldest and most powerful werewolves, and Gary was turned by one of them. Jacobson and his pack are far-removed elders, like most werewolves these days. They're cursed just the same, but the benefits are lessened, weakened by the impurity of the curse, and their powers are diluted. The elders are very selective with their curse. Some say the elders don't even turn people anymore. Another theory is that they seek out their brood and select them based on merit and worthiness. But if that's true, it means that Gary was chosen, but they have no idea what for. Wolf-Man runs into another villain called Construct, who fought and defeated Kid Thor and Red Devil. They go head to head, but Wolf-Man gets pinned to the ground after a couple of rockets explode on his face. However, Kid Thor recovers and attacks Construct from behind, managing to damage the armor. Wolf-Man then removes the helmet, revealing that a woman was driving the armor, but she immediately gives up. Gary wants to go looking for the elder who turned him, in hopes of getting some answers, and Zechariah thinks it might be a good idea. He then goes back home and straps himself to a machine that prevents him from escaping. He wants to make sure he won't go after his family once he loses control, but Chloe is scared and just wants things to get back to normal. Chloe plays tennis against another girl from her school, but she gets destroyed. She gave her best and wants to shake the winner's hand, but the other girl mocks her, calling her family broke and saying that the only reason she's still in school is because her mother is screwing the dean. Chloe loses her temper and hits her with her tennis racket, leaving the crowd and her parents in shock. The ride home was awkward and she refused to speak to her parents, but Dunford is curious to know if she won the game. Her mother comes to console her, but Chloe claims she's the laughingstock of her school and everybody hates her. They're constantly making fun of her and her friends don't even talk to her anymore. They're embarrassed. They heard her family is poor now and she is forced to live in a hotel, calling her the homeless girl. She blames her father for this and says she hates him. Later that night, Wolf-Man wants to blow off some steam and intervenes during a police chase. He jumps on top of a running car that was trying to run from the police. The person driving survives the impact, but he claims he's not running from the police, but something else. A mysterious villain shows up out of nowhere and attacks them. His name is Impact, and he has the ability to absorb kinetic energy of objects impacting against him, so bullets only make him stronger. Meanwhile, Rebecca goes to a fancy restaurant and meets a guy named Nathan. He was happy that she called and asks about Chloe and Gary, but Rebecca didn't come here to talk about them. Somewhere else, Make-A Maid was out shopping with her daughter when she hears Wolf-Man and Impact fighting nearby. Her daughter isn't actually real, but rather a hologram which she is able to control with her powers. She rushes to the battle scene and scans Impact's body, searching for potential weaknesses. Apparently he's some kind of human battery, charged with kinetic energy, and his cells are simply remarkable. But it only takes a few seconds for her to figure out his weakness, and then incapacitate him. A group of special guards arrive, and the man whom Wolf-Man saved earlier tells them to strap him inside the van. The Actioneers arrive and Kinetic punches Wolf-Man in the face, calling him a murderer. She accuses him of killing Sergeant Superior, calling him her friend, and then goes all out on him. Wolf-Man defends himself and retaliates, punching her back, but the other heroes attack him as well. Minotaur, Code Blue, and even Mecha Maid all come at him from every direction, slamming him against the cars. Wolf-Man claims he didn't mean to kill Sergeant, it was an accident, but they refuse to listen to his explanation and keep attacking him. Eventually he is pinned to the ground, and Kinetic wants to kill him, but the others intervene, claiming they don't kill people. This isn't what they do. Out of nowhere, Sergeant Superior appears and asks her to let him go, while the others can't believe he is still alive. But that's not exactly accurate because he's a vampire now and shows off his fangs. Kinetic punches him once again, accusing him of turning their friend into a monster. However, Sergeant tries to calm her down, saying it wasn't his fault, but rather an accident. He asks Wolf-Man to go away and let him explain the entire thing to his friends. They'll understand everything once he's done. Gary goes searching for Zechariah and finds him hiding in a dark alley. He was able to smell his scent. He accuses him of lying to him. He allowed him to believe he had killed Sergeant. He left him with that guilt. But technically he did kill him, and the only reason he's still alive is because Zechariah took his body and turned him into a vampire. It was the only way. Gary says he can't trust him anymore. He's been lying to him ever since they've met and wants him gone from his life. He goes back to the hideout and runs into Rebecca, who is carrying her bags and getting ready to leave. Apparently, they closed the embezzlement investigation earlier tonight. Gary's been cleared and his assets have been unfrozen. They can go back home. She is taking Chloe and going back home in the morning, but she doesn't want him to come with them. After everything that happened recently, she wants to take a step back and look things over. She needs some space away from him. Gary talks to Dunford and claims that Zechariah was right. Whatever happened to him is a curse. Even though he has amazing powers now, everything else in his life is falling apart. He goes after Rebecca and confesses his love for her. He wants her to go back home and take some time to think things over, while he vows to make things right. Rebecca goes to check her bags when out of nowhere Zechariah appears and startles her. He wants her to talk to her husband, claiming he has dangerous powers and knows nothing about it. He needs him, but Rebecca slaps him, claiming she never liked him that much. This causes Zechariah to lose his temper, and he hits her back with a powerful backhand to the face. The hit was more powerful than he thought, and it broke her neck, which instantly killed her. The vampire panics and doesn't know what to do, so he bites her neck trying to turn her into a vampire. Gary walks in on them and catches them in the act, but Zechariah claims this isn't what it looks like, it was an accident. He claims that because he fed on Sergeant Superior's superhuman blood, it temporarily made him a lot stronger, and he used too much force. Wolf-Man couldn't be reasoned with, so he turns into mist and disappears, leaving Gary to hold his wife's body in his arms. Chloe walks in on them and is petrified, thinking that he killed her mother, but nothing is what it looks like tonight. He changes into his human form, but it's no use. She is scared of him and begs him not to hurt her. Somewhere else, Sergeant Superior has a new master now, Zechariah, and he ordered him to kill the Actioneers and turn them into vampires as well. Gary is on the run now and visits a couple of thugs, hoping they can make him a fake ID so he'll have enough time to clear his name. The thugs claim they know about him from the news. Werewolf superhero, murderer and multimillionaire, but they are willing to do it for him as long as he pays them a pile of money. However, he didn't have money, so they get into a heated argument, and Gary gets shot. He manages to escape, but is badly injured and he barely makes it out alive. He hitches on the back of a truck which drives out of the city, but he eventually falls and lands in a ditch on the side of the road. His body is broken from the fall and he was bleeding severely, but luckily for him, it got dark in a couple of hours and he transforms into Wolf-Man. Now in his wolf form, he is completely healed, which allows him to travel faster, hitching another ride on top of a truck. Back at the mansion, Rebecca was buried today, but Chloe was angry at her father and wanted Dunford to leave her alone. She uses a pair of scissors to cut out her father from every family picture she can find. At the hideout, two agents inspect the crime scene when someone informs them that Wolf-Man was spotted an hour ago on the interstate. Gary uses his human form to travel during the day and his werewolf form to travel during the night. He basically doesn't even need to sleep anymore. But the two agents are following his trail, talking to people who've been in contact with him the past couple of days. Based on the places he's stopped at, he's heading somewhere northwest, and one of the agents claims he knows exactly where he's going. But he doesn't want his partner to follow him, he wants to handle this one himself. Gary eventually arrives at his destination, Willow Creek Camping Ground, the very place where everything started for him. He is looking for the elder brood who turned him, but the wilderness is a big place and he spends the night camping. During the night, a voice speaks to him, claiming he caught his scent the moment he set foot in his forest. The voice claims that Gary was chosen to carry his legacy, chosen to spread his influence. The elder brood reveals himself, demanding to know why he came back looking for him. Gary came because he wants him to teach him how to kill a vampire. Chloe visits the famous private investigator Damien Darkblood and asks him to track down her father. Damien claims she's come to the right place. If there's anyone who can find him, it's him. The elder brood attacks Gary, asking him to defend himself, but he doesn't understand what's going on. He came here asking for his help, and he's attacking him instead. He didn't come here to fight, but the elder brood says the opposite and wants him to defend himself. Gary eventually gives in and attacks him, kicking him in the head with a powerful kick. The two werewolves attack each other face to face, both managing to injure the other in the abdomen. Injuring an elder brood is impressive, and if Gary wants to defeat a vampire, he will have to be at the peak of his abilities. He successfully passed the first test, and they will continue this later. Back in the city, the Actioneers were all turned into vampires now, all except Mecha Maid. She is the last to fall at the hands of Zechariah's minions, and he wants to keep a close eye on her because she can't be turned like the others. The next day, the agent who's been following Gary finds him searching through dumpsters and fires at him. Fortunately, it was already dawn and the sun set, allowing him to transform into Wolf-Man. Gary begs the agent to leave him alone, claiming he doesn't want to hurt him and that he didn't kill his wife. But the agent doesn't believe him and attacks him a second time, this time managing to put a couple of bullets in his back. Unfortunately, these are silver bullets and Gary is severely injured, but he manages to run away. There is something off about this agent. He is incredibly fast and agile, and Wolfman decides to face him head on. He jumps towards him and cuts his body in half using his sharp claws. The agent was literally ripped in half, but Gary thought he had some kind of superpowers and would be able to take it. He was right though, because the agent isn't dead. He gets up and shoots him in the head. They called him Agent Invincible until that kid came along. Now they just call him Hunter. Hunter picks up the bottom part of his body and reattaches his legs, making himself whole again. The fight continues, but the silver bullets were making Gary weaker, and he won't be able to take much more of this. Thankfully, the elder brood was nearby and he attacks the agent from behind, ripping his body in half again. But this time he throws his torso far away from the rest of his body, which will more than likely slow him down. Back at the mansion, Damien Darkblood visits Chloe and says he accomplished his mission. He found him. The silver bullets are still in his body and Wolfman is losing a lot of blood. He wants to revert back to his human form and heal his body, but the elder brood forbids him from doing it. He claims he relies too much on his transformation. The wolf form has healing abilities that he neglected, and he needs to develop them. He then attacks him, punching a hole straight through his abdomen, saying this is the next part of his training. His injuries from before were nothing compared to the gaping hole in his abdomen now. Elder Brood says that if he expects to fight a vampire, he needs to be prepared and learn to rely on his werewolf healing abilities rather than his transformation. Every time he changes back into a human, he is slightly disoriented, and the vampire will exploit this and strike him down. He is losing a lot of blood, but he learns how to breathe slowly and controlled. His body will heal itself. It works, and in the end, Wolfman changes back into Gary, but he still passes out. Luckily, Elder Brood catches him and then carries him into the forest, taking him to a safe place where he can recover. Elsewhere, the two agents reunited, but one of them had no idea that Hunter had superpowers, which basically make him unkillable. He takes him on his back, and the two of them go searching for Hunter's legs, which are somewhere in the forest. The Actioneers are on a mission, searching for someone, but they come up empty-handed. They can't find any signs of who they are hunting, and Kinetic is getting hungry. Meanwhile, Zechariah visits an old man who is resting in his hospital bed. The man wakes up saying he changed his mind. He's ready now to become a vampire, claiming he was a fool for refusing his offer before. Zechariah says his offer expired, and besides, he's much too old to become a vampire. He won't be of any use to him now. The old man accepts his fate, but he wants Zechariah to tell him his plan once again. Everything began in the summer of 1916. Zechariah had lost his family to the fever once before, but he remarried and had a baby on the way. It was difficult to get a job, but there were plenty of jobs in construction. Unfortunately, he was considered too old, and every construction site turned him down. He had read about Dracula and knew about the existence of vampires, believing that they are part of a secret society that's been around as long as humans. They were probably very organized and had much influence, especially given their powers over the human mind. Zechariah wanted to become one and be part of this elite organization, and one night he was turned by one of them. Unfortunately, it wasn't what he expected. The vampires weren't organized at all. They were pathetic junkies, addicts, controlled by their hunger, slaves to it. Somehow he managed to escape, even though he didn't know how to fully control his powers yet. He and his wife moved to another city. But because he needed to feed, he decided to strike out against those who deserved it. Thieves, rapists, murderers, he became the city's guardian angel. But something troubled him. He didn't understand why he was the only vampire who could get it together, who learned to feed on a regular basis without becoming a slave to it. That's when he came up with his plan. He had high hopes for the vampire nation and wanted to make it a force to be reckoned with. He used his knowledge to unite the vampire population, to form an organized and cohesive secret society, one that could influence and change the course of human history. He wanted to rule the world so that he could make it a better place, but most of all, he wants to rule the world. The old man is sorry he didn't take his offer sooner, but now he wants Zechariah to kill him, which he does. Before leaving, Zechariah says goodbye to the old man, claiming he was his son and he'll always love him. Elder Brood brings Gary into one of his caves and gives him food for one day. It's going to take a few days for his body to recover, and until that happens, he will need to hunt for himself in order to stay alive. This is the next part of his training. If he passes this test, it means he is worthy to continue their training. Meanwhile, Chloe follows Darkblood's instructions and arrives at an old apartment building. It turns out that she wasn't looking for her father, but rather Zechariah. She says her father has lost his mind and can't control himself anymore. He murdered her mother, so she wants him to help her kill him. Following the events in the Invincible storyline, Mark wanted to help Wolf-Man clear his name and brought him to the Pentagon. But Cecil refused to help him, claiming it's not his job to judge him. His job is to arrest him and let the law deal with him. A conflict breaks out between Invincible and the Reaniman, but the drones are no match for them. Mark takes Wolf-Man and they both escape the Pentagon, but they are far from being safe. Something hits them in the air, which causes Invincible to drop Wolf-Man from the sky. It was the Guardians of the Globe, led by Immortal himself. They were sent by Cecil to arrest them, and they don't understand why he's defending a murderer. Mark claims they are doing the same thing with Darkwing, who is also a murderer, whom Cecil decided to offer a job. Another fight breaks out, and Wolf-Man defends himself, claiming he's not a bad guy, and he just wants to be left alone. Invincible claims he's almost as strong as his father used to be, so they don't stand a chance against him. But Immortal remarks that he's becoming more and more like his dad, which isn't a good thing. This pisses him off, and he punches Immortal with everything he's got, which sends him flying. The Guardians are good people and they are just trying to do the right thing, but Invincible is tired of having to hold back. He gets pissed off and grabs Immortal by the head. He then spins around and knocks out most of the Guardians, and then lets go. Immortal is sent flying a few miles into the sky, while the others try to recover on the ground. Invincible takes Wolf-Man back to his estate in the Hamptons, where his daughter is living. Gary claims he didn't run because he was scared. He did it to gain some time in order to find a way to clear his name. He wants to find Zechariah and expose him as the real killer of his wife, but he doesn't know where he lives. He's never seen his place. Dunford saw them on CCTV cameras and comes to greet his boss, and Gary introduces him to Invincible. He knows he didn't kill Rebecca. He could never do that, not even as a werewolf. He says Chloe isn't doing too good. She's still attending classes, but her grades have dropped a lot, even though her teachers are understanding of her situation. She's angry all the time and blames her father for everything that happened to them. Wolf-Man wants Invincible to do him one more favor and asks him to take him back to Willow Creek. After he left, the Elder Brood comes out of hiding, curious to know who that guy was. Cecil claims they know exactly where Wolf-Man is, but he doesn't want to take him down. Instead, he wants to keep an eye on him. Maybe they can still use him in the future. Just outside of Chicago, Illinois, 3 villains, Thrill Kill, Eruptor, and Construct, are being taken to Stronghold Penitentiary to serve their sentence. Out of nowhere, something attacks the armored truck, and they crash on the side of the road. Thanks to their restraints, the villains are unharmed, and Construct claims she planned their escape. They should follow her if they want to break free. Wolf-Man resumes his training, but he was a lot stronger and faster now, standing toe-to-toe with his teacher. The Elder Brood claims that his training is now complete. There is nothing left he could teach him, and he needs to figure out the rest himself. He asks him to leave his forest and never come back, because if he does, he won't be welcomed. Construct takes her new friends to her hideout and asks them to make themselves at home while she goes into the other room. However, Thrill Kill doesn't like her bossing them around and claims he prefers to work alone. He attacks Eruptor and slashes his throat and then goes after her. She was sitting at her desk but isn't bothered by the crazy murderer who is trying to kill her. Eruptor wasn't killed and recovered unharmed. He attacks Thrill Kill from behind, claiming that he and Construct are now even, a thank you for breaking them out of prison. She then asks Thrill Kill to attack her once again, but this place is booby-trapped with lasers which destroy anything that gets too close to her. She wants them to work together and form a team, calling themselves Triple Threat. Chloe visits Zechariah and says she wants to kill her father by herself, but she isn't strong enough. However, he claims there are ways to make her stronger, just as long as she's willing to try it. Construct upgraded her teammates with new toys, making them stronger than ever. As their first mission together, they plan to go after Wolf-Man and take him down, blaming him for their situation. Wolf-Man returns to his hideout, but Cecil visits him, claiming he's not here to arrest him. He wants him to keep using this place while they find a way to clear his name, which might take some time. He believes his story and wants to help him, but if law enforcement finds him, he's on his own. Before leaving, Wolf-Man asks if he can get the restraining device back. That time of the month when he loses control approaches, and he wants to be ready. Triple Threat traveled to Willow Creek, thinking that Wolf-Man is hiding there, and Construct built new and better armor for herself. However, instead of finding Wolf-Man, they come face to face with the Elder Brood, who attacks them viciously. Gary goes to his wife's grave, apologizing for destroying their family, taking full responsibility for everything that happened. But Agent Hunter was keeping watch on this place and he ambushes him from behind, together with a team of agents. The agent mocks him, asking if he's come to his wife's grave to admire his handiwork. He wants to arrest Gary and doesn't expect much of a fight, seeing how it's daylight and all. But during his training with Elder Brood, Gary learned to fight even in his human form, because he needs to be ready for an attack even during the day. The other agents want to shoot him, but Hunter stops them, claiming they can take him alive. Gary shoots him in the face, but his body takes the hit as if it was nothing. Hunter then punches him, which sends him flying all the way to his wife's grave. Meanwhile, in Montana, the fight between the Elder Brood and Triple Threat had ended, but the forest was destroyed and the villains were barely breathing. Chloe was sleeping in her bedroom, but Dunford wakes up, remarking that he doesn't like her sneaking up during the night. She gets annoyed and asks him to shut up. He's not her father because she doesn't have one anymore, but this pisses him off. The two of them get into a heated argument and she slaps him, asking him to stop defending her father. He decides to tell her the story of how Gary met her mother while he was working as a music producer. He took the money from his first record he produced and invested in a small software company, and eventually expanded and went into telecommunications. During that time, he even married her mother and had her. By the time he was in his mid-20s, Gary had everything he ever wanted. As his wealth grew, so did his generosity. He formed charities, funded projects, built hospitals, schools, shelters. He touched and improved many lives. Dunford had a business of his own, but Gary offered to buy it, and that's when they became friends. When Dunford's wife died, the old man didn't know what to do with his life anymore. So Gary asked him to work for him, and so he became the estate manager. Unfortunately, her father was working too much and spending many nights at the office, which left Rebecca feeling neglected. She had an affair with Nathan Singleton, one of Gary's competitors, who treated her nicely and gave her lots of attention. Eventually, he found out about the affair, but he was willing to forgive her and work on their marriage. The trip to Montana was an attempt to reconnect their marriage, but something else happened that changed everything. Gary is a kind soul, who cares about others, and who would never hurt the people he cares about. He's confident that he didn't kill her mother. Chloe agrees, claiming that her father didn't kill her mother, but that beast did. That's who she hates the most. Back in prison, Cecil visits Gary, saying he's disappointed in him. He could have kept his hideout a secret, but he went to his wife's grave, which gave the agents a chance to arrest him. He believes his story and knows he didn't kill his wife, but he can't help now. If the public finds out that he broke him out of prison, he's screwed. Gary understands and wants to hire the best lawyer he can, but in the meantime, he wants Cecil to find Zechariah, the man who killed his wife. He has a collar around his neck which prevents him from turning into Wolf-Man, and Cecil wants him to sit back and not try to escape. The trial goes to court and Gary is found guilty of murder. Meanwhile, his daughter continues training with Zechariah, determined to get stronger and kill her own father. But the vampire was feeding her blood, not enough to turn her into a vampire, but enough to make her stronger and faster. Gary is being taken to Stronghold Penitentiary, alongside the Triple Threat villains, who can't help but mock him. Thrill Kill claims that even the normal prisoners hate him, and he won't last long here. He tries to kill him, but one of the guards gets in the way and loses his life. He is quickly incapacitated, but the other guards blame Gary for their friend's death. If it wasn't for him being brought here, their friend would still be alive, so they let him have it. He is taken to solitary confinement, but they can't kill him, so they just leave him bruised on the floor. During the night, one of the officers comes and takes him out, claiming someone important wants to speak to him. A villain named The Face was sitting outside with 2 bodyguards, but he isn't happy because the guards confiscated his special shipment today. He wants to teach the prison guard a lesson and asks his bodyguards to cut off 2 of his fingers, one for what happened today and another as a down payment on keeping the next shipment safe. The Face is very important and controls most of the guards here, who allow him to come outside alone where the others are sleeping. But even though he is afforded a certain level of comfort, he doesn't want to stay here forever. He can escape on his own and doesn't need Gary's help with that, but he does want his help once he's free. He has big plans that are gonna piss a lot of important people off out there, but he can't do that if he's being pursued by the law. He wants Gary to use his overseas contacts to get him out of the country, to a comfortable striking distance. He claims the country has become uglier and stupider thanks to indiscriminately breeding, and he wants to change all that. He wants to trim the fat, so to speak, and bring about a leaner, stronger country, one more equipped to thrive. He tells Gary his full plans because he is confident that he will help him. He can't afford to spend another day inside the prison. The guards hate him just as much as the prisoners. But Gary declines his offer and asks to be taken back to his cell, which leaves the face furious and in shock. Chloe is tired of feeding on the vampire's blood and wants to be turned into one, but he refuses, claiming she doesn't know the burden of the hunger that comes along. She attacks him, feeling overconfident in her newly acquired skills. But Zechariah uses his mistransformation and quickly puts her in her place. Dunford visits Gary and says that Chloe ran away and he hasn't been able to find her ever since. Gary gets angry and orders him to do whatever it takes, spend all the money if he has to, but find his little girl. Chloe wants nothing more than to avenge her mother's death and kill her father, and Zechariah thinks he knows just how to do it. Gary has another talk with the face, but this time he is willing to work together and get out of here, claiming he needs to find his daughter. The corrupt guards remove his collar, which inhibits his powers and prevents him from transforming into a werewolf. He immediately changes into Wolf-Man, but something is wrong. His eyes are red and he is overwhelmed with rage. He instantly attacks the two guards and kills them on the spot, while the bodyguards jump him from behind. He easily deals with them as well and then goes for the face. The villain removes his mask, revealing that he actually has two faces merged together. However, that's not the only strange thing about him. He can also shoot omega beams from his eyes. Wolf-Man gets up and attacks him again, so he gets knocked down a second time. The warden shows up with many of his guards who attack Wolf-Man, trying to restrain him. The warden is upset with the face, accusing him of causing trouble inside his prison. While the fight rages on, the villain threatens the warden, saying he doesn't tolerate people disrespecting him, no matter the situation at hand. More than half of the guards work for him, and he can have the warden killed if he wanted to, but he doesn't. The face visits him again, vowing to end him for what he did in the yard. Gary tells him the truth. Once per month during the first full moon, he loses control and he isn't responsible for his actions. The villain believes his story and chooses to give him a second chance. Unfortunately, their plan of escaping the prison takes a weird turn when the alternate dimension evil versions of Invincible attack the planet. They even attack the prison and some of the prisoners want to escape, including Thrillkill, but Gary changes into Wolf-Man and tries to stop him. He quickly incapacitates him, but Powerplex, another villain who fought Invincible, shoots him from behind with a powerful energy blast. He is knocked unconscious and wakes up inside the prison once again after the Invincible variants were defeated. Cecil visits him inside the prison, and Gary tells him about the Face's plan to escape. He's planning some major attack on the United States and wants Gary to help him get to Europe. Cecil and his team put a fake collar around his neck, saying that he can change into Wolf-Man at will, but he wants him to stay behind bars and work with the Face for now. Cecil claims he was locked inside this prison as well and understands what he's going through. He's doing everything he can to try and break him free. Since Mecha Maid is an android, she wasn't turned into a vampire like her teammates and manages to escape using her daughter's hologram. The Actioneer's vampires break inside Stronghold Penitentiary and run into Gary, but they don't recognize him in his human form. A full war breaks out inside as the vampires go nuts trying to find him. Gary runs into a group of inmates who want to beat him up, so he is forced to change into a werewolf. Kinetic immediately spots him and kidnaps him, while the others claim it's feeding time. But the Actioneers are the least of his worries right now because Zechariah came to kill him. Wolf-Man accuses him of killing his wife, but if that's true, why is he the one behind bars? His training with the Elder Brood is paying off. He is a lot faster and stronger now, and Zechariah doesn't understand why. The entire prison erupts in chaos, but the Face hired Construct to break him out. They just need to wait it out until her robot arrives. Zechariah injures Wolf-Man. Even though his strikes were more precise, it just didn't matter. Wolf-Man lands a hit on him, but the vampire transforms into mist and tries to escape. Unfortunately for him, the Elder Brood taught him how to deal with such a trick and manages to bite off his hand. Zechariah screams in agony as one of his arms is bitten off, but Wolf-Man vows to keep going, blaming him for ruining his life. The vampire claims this won't even slow him down and attacks again, this time with just one hand. The prison is in pure chaos, but a bunch of strong heroes show up and are determined to end the riot. Kinetic goes after Bolt, claiming his blood will sustain her for months, but he doesn't understand what happened to her. Kid Thor is also confused. The Actioneers were supposed to be superheroes. What happened to them? Wolf-Man breaks Zechariah's sword, but he retaliates with a powerful punch, which sends him flying through the rubble. After escaping, Mecha Maid rushes toward the prison and she assesses the situation from a distance. Wolfman remembers what the Elder Brood told him during the training. You can't kill a vampire with a stick, but you can pin him to the ground. He won't be able to escape, and he can await the sun's blazing kiss of death. The plan works, and Zechariah gets stabbed with a wooden stick. He is still alive but unable to move. The vampire claims that because Wolfman went to the Elder Brood, he's doomed them all. Gary and the other werewolf are meant to be its slaves. Any training he gave him was only to make him a more capable servant. He'll eventually come for him, and when he does, he's going to need Zechariah's help. Things take a dark turn when Chloe arrives, determined to kill her father with her own hands. Gary tries to explain, but she doesn't want to listen. She saw him standing over her mother's body covered in blood. Wolfman is nothing but a ruthless killer. He eventually gets up and tells her the truth, that Zechariah is the one who killed her mother, and the only reason he trained her is because he didn't want the two of them to talk. Gary wants to put the past behind them and focus on forgiving each other. He misses Rebecca just as much as she does and vows to not fight her anymore. He lays down his hands and gives his daughter a hug, but she has other plans in mind. She uses her sword and stabs her father through the chest, severely injuring him. The dad is still alive, but he keeps his promise and says he won't fight her. Instead, he takes out the sword from his chest and falls on the ground unconscious. Chloe is overwhelmed with remorse and panics, realizing that her father might be dead. She apologizes and blames herself for listening to Zechariah, begging her father not to die. Fortunately, he changes into his human form, which instantly heals his wounds from the werewolf form. However, the danger is far from over, because Thrillkill and Kursk arrive and threaten to fight her. But they have no idea that she trained with Zechariah and is a very skilled fighter now. Kursk electrocutes both of them, but Gary changes back into Wolfman and attacks him. He begs his daughter to get out of here and escape, but she's not about to leave him against these two villains. She can take care of herself and proves it by jumping over Thrillkill and cutting him on the back with her sword. The father and daughter duo manage to incapacitate the two villains. In another part of the prison, Eruptor begs Construct to take him with them, and she agrees he's not completely useless. Wolfman sees them talking and wants to go with them. God only knows what the face is up to, but he won't be able to find out unless he escapes with him. Before leaving, he tells his daughter about Cecil, a man with a scar on his face working for the government. He's a friend and she can trust him. The riot is just about over. The heroes have dealt with all the major threats, but some of them have escaped, and rounding them up won't be easy. Mecha Maid tries to stop the face from escaping, but he shoots her out of the sky. Eruptor wants to kill her, but Wolfman stops him, claiming she's been working with him, helping to cause this attack. He convinces them to take her as well, even though Construct doesn't even want to take Wolfman. He's one of the good guys, and the person responsible for taking them to jail. Unfortunately, the face has the last word. He's the one running this show, and everyone gets on board the escape ship. Cecil arrives and finds Zechariah on the ground with a wooden stick lodged in his chest. They place him inside a metal coffin, which prevents him from changing into mist and escaping. They also find Chloe hiding, but she mentions her father and gets a free pass. Mecha Maid wakes up in the ship confused, but Wolfman tells her to play along, claiming he's one of the good guys. The face wants him to get a private jet and get them out of the country, but it's going to take at least 2 days to talk to his contacts. Somewhere else, another werewolf is watching them from a distance, reporting back to someone over the radio. After what happened at the penitentiary, Chloe is taken to the Pentagon for interrogation. Everything she says is confirmed and she's cleared, but she feels ashamed for trying to kill her father. Donald is sorry about her mother's death. She's been through a lot. He tries consoling her, but she gets the wrong impression and gives him a kiss. He says he's married, and on top of that, he's not even human anymore. He's a robot. She wonders why he calls himself that. He's more like a cyborg than a robot, but he prefers it this way. Cyborg sounded a little too baseball. He takes out his jetpack and offers to take her home, while she remarks he's kinda goofy for a secret agent. Construct created another suit for Wolfman, similar to the one Art Rosenbaum made for him, and she even redid the gauntlets. He needs to charge them during the night, and they can last for 2 hours during daytime. Wolfman's contact is waiting for them in Miami with a private jet. Once there, they'll be able to board a military transport bound for Europe, somewhere in France, he believes. Once there, Construct should be able to get them everywhere they need to be. Agent Hunter confronts Cecil, saying he knows about Chloe's interrogation, but that's above his pay grade. As far as he's concerned, Gary Hampton's investigation is over, and he now has other things to deal with. He visits Zechariah, who is locked inside a special cell, saying they've identified the teeth marks on Rebecca's neck and they belong to him, which should clear Gary's name in the court of law. Chloe goes back home and apologizes to Dunford, saying she feels embarrassed for what she did. Cecil appears out of nowhere and says he's got good news. According to their investigation, Gary didn't kill her mother. Wolf-Man and Mecha Maid talk in private, and he wants her to play along until they figure out what the Face is planning. Out of nowhere, the werewolf who was watching them earlier attacks him. He claims Gary betrayed them. He's working with humans when he should be ruling them. The two of them fall off the cliff, but Mecha Maid catches Wolf-Man, while the other werewolf whispers that he's actually working for Cecil, and then gives him an earpiece to stay in contact with him. The group eventually arrives in Miami, where the private airplane is waiting for them. The Face threatens Wolf-Man, claiming that he's becoming too much of a liability, especially after the latest attack. The Actioneers are suffering badly. Since they became vampires, they need blood to sustain them, but they are locked inside a dark prison cell. Cecil uses the earpiece to talk to Wolf-Man, saying he's been tracking them as well. He needs to stay close to the Face and stop whatever he's planning. Somewhere else, the Elder Brood picks up on someone's scent, remarking that it's almost time. The crew arrives at their final destination, the Stonehenge site in Great Britain. The Face confesses that while he was locked in prison, he heard another voice speak to him. This voice claims he is trapped here and wants to be released, and in exchange, it's willing to do whatever it takes, including following his orders. He orders his henchmen to move some of the rocks into a different position, trying to break something free. Out of nowhere, the ground shakes and a giant creature named Gorg emerges. The Face has served him well. After 8,000 years of slumber, he is finally free. But instead of rewarding him for his trouble, he swallows him alive, claiming he's no use to him anymore. The other villains disappear into the night, but Mecha Maid attaches herself to Wolf-Man and they go after him. Gary jumps on his back and punches him, but Gorg doesn't even acknowledge him as a threat and dismisses his attack. Mecha Maid powers up and shoots him at incredible speed toward their common enemy. They land a powerful blow to the Face, but Mecha's pain receptors overcharge. Gorg easily deals with them and then heads into the ocean, moving toward an unknown destination. The sun is coming up, but this is the perfect time to test if the gauntlet can keep him in his werewolf form. The fight rages on, and Wolf-Man can't help but wonder what this guy's beef is anyway. They eventually arrive in New York City, and Gorg claims he's had enough. He's on a mission. He's come here to slaughter those who imprisoned him all those years ago. Even though they are dead now, he wants to go after their bloodline and won't stop until they are all killed. Then he wants to awaken his brothers and sisters and take over the world. Wolf-Man, of course, can't allow that to happen and punches him again, this time sending him crashing through the Brooklyn Bridge. He then uses the metal wires keeping the bridge up to wrap them around the monster's neck. He only wanted revenge and doesn't understand why they tried to stop him. The wires wrap around his entire body, and he destroys his body by moving too much. Gorg sinks underwater, while the people of New York witness the entire thing and hail Wolf-Man as their hero. Word of his success quickly spreads, and he is even invited to speak at a talk show. The investigation is over, and Gary is cleared of all charges. He can't even believe how fast his life changed in the past couple of weeks. Not too long ago, he was locked in prison for life, and now he's a hero, doing talk shows. But Gary can't stop thinking about his wife. Not a day goes by without missing her. He didn't want to come on the show, but Cecil thought it was a good idea, something to clear his image and boost his reputation even further. The show is being watched by Chloe back home, but she can't bear to watch her father cry. Mecha Maid's real name is Pamela, and she tells her about her daughter Elise. She's a hologram created by her, a completely separate artificial intelligence that she feels is no different than any flesh and blood offspring. Cecil says he is building a satellite base for the Guardians of the Globe and wants Gary to join the team. However, he's still not happy that Zechariah is still alive somewhere under the Pentagon, but after they find him guilty of Rebecca's murder, he's going to get the death penalty for sure. Pieces of Gorg have been scattered all over the sea floor, and workers are trying to clean the area. They find the Face still alive, locked inside one of the bigger pieces, but he just begs them to take him back to prison. Meanwhile, underwater, one of the divers is doing the same thing, but he is attacked by something from behind. After drinking Zechariah's blood, Chloe retained her powers, and she goes on a mission with her dad. She is supposed to drive the wolf car but crashes into a guy named Impact. Wolf-Man attacks him, but after the crash, he is stronger than ever. The man claims he wants to kill Wolf-Man because he prevented him from killing a scientist when they first met. He had a family before that man took everything from him. He's been trying to get back to them ever since. Mecha Maid upgraded their car, allowing it to turn into a giant robot. Chloe is driving the robot, and she pins Impact to the ground, beating him senselessly. But her attacks are only making him stronger, and he retaliates, sending her flying. The punch is so powerful that it destroys the robot completely, but thankfully she still has her sword with her. Wolf-Man wants them to stop fighting and just talk. He understands better than anyone how it is to lose your family. Cecil arrives as well, claiming he's been listening to their conversation and wants to help him. Impact agrees to follow him, and they all disappear through the teleportation portal. Back at the Pentagon, Mecha Maid watches the Actioneers as they struggle with blood hunger. She wants to help them but doesn't know how, while they want her to bring them someone they can feed on. She visits Zechariah's cell and asks if there's any way to help her friends. She's willing to do whatever he asks. Zechariah smiles, remarking that he's sure something can be arranged. Impact tells the story of his life, how he volunteered to be experimented on, but he did it because he was desperate and needed to provide for his family. They told him what they would do to him, but Dr. Cleaver never told him that he would be working for him his entire life. He wasn't allowed to see his family anymore, and now they're gone, and Dr. Cleaver had him declared dead. They don't even know he's alive. Wolfman and his group all agree to help him find Dr. Cleaver and stop him before he experiments on other people such as himself. Impact takes them to a secret lab, but Dr. Cleaver had already created others like him. He wasn't the first, nor the last. Somewhere else, the Elder Brood visits a village full of werewolves, claiming the time has come and he needs their help. The guards check Zechariah's cell, but it was empty. Mecha Maid had helped him escape, and he was already planning his revenge. Wolfman and the others fight against the freaks, but they are doing this willingly, claiming they've got a good thing going here, and they're getting paid. Cecil teleports out of nowhere and asks everyone to stand down. Effective immediately, the US government is taking over the entire operation, and while Dr. Cleaver will be taken to jail, his experiments will be confiscated. He was also able to find Impact's family, and they are all reunited in a touching moment. The other werewolf working for Cecil is actually the old one from the rooftops, whom Wolfman thought he had killed the first time he lost control. He was old and dying of cancer, but the attack turned him into a werewolf, and now he is cured and happy to be alive. Mecha Maid meets with Zechariah in private and gives him a fake hand that she created, but he doesn't trust her completely. She just wants her friends back and wants him to turn the Actioneers back into humans. It turns out that Mecha Maid is actually secretly working together with Wolfman. They've arranged to free him from prison because Gary wants to kill him himself. The Elder Brood gives a big speech in front of his fellow werewolves, claiming the gathering is upon them. A big change will happen within their communities. There's gonna be a new beginning and they won't have to live in the shadows anymore. Construct broke inside a warehouse trying to steal supplies for her inventions, but Wolfman tries to stop her. Chloe, aka Vampire Girl, also gets involved and she manages to cut her armor with the sword, rendering her completely useless. Gary is impressed even though he told her to wait in the car and let him deal with her. Mecha Maid gets into a heated argument with Donald about her daughter, Elise. Elise is an independent AI, but her mother puts her in danger every time they go on a mission, and this can be considered a form of child endangerment. She gets upset and asks Donald to leave her alone, but Wolfman asks her to calm down. The two of them stay to talk in private, while Donald takes Vampire Girl upstairs. But they don't have much time, because Zechariah wanted to meet her, so they leave together to face him. Wolfman jumps the old vampire, but his new mechanical hand comes in handy, landing a few powerful blows. The hand was supposed to be a trap that would send a few thousand volts of electricity pumping through his body, but Zechariah found a way to disable the trap. The vampire claims this isn't the time to fight and tries to escape by jumping off the side of the building, but Wolfman jumps after him, landing on his back. However, the vampire transforms into a bat and escapes by hiding in a dark corner of the building. The duo goes back to the mansion empty-handed, but Gary wants to call Cecil and tell him that he's the one who freed Zechariah. Out of nowhere, an army of werewolves breaks through the window and attacks them, claiming that he's been marked, and everyone who stands with him will also die. Dunford gets attacked from behind and is instantly decapitated while Gary watches in horror. His best friend is now also dead. How much more pain can one man take? He doesn't understand what's going on, why the other werewolves are attacking them, but Jacobson says that he was marked by the Elder, and so he must die. Vampire Girl gets involved and holds her own, but Gary wants Mecha Maid to take her out of here, but that's not going to be easy. Luckily, the crew arrives. Gary Wolf and Agent Hunter come to their rescue, using the teleportation device. Unfortunately, the door opens both ways, and some of the werewolves break inside the Pentagon. Chloe sees Dunford lying dead on the ground and begins crying, while the fighting around her gets even more dangerous. Mecha Maid attaches herself to Agent Hunter, and the two of them become a well-oiled killing machine. Werewolf heads drop left and right, but there are still too many of them and the fight can go either way. Eventually, enough of them are killed, and Jacobson orders the retreat. If the Elder Brood wants Wolfman dead, he's going to get his wish. Maybe not today, but soon. Everyone retreats, leaving behind tens of mutilated bodies drenched in their own blood. Gary attends his best friend's funeral, but after losing his wife as well, it's just too much for him to take. He talks to Cecil and says he wants to quit. He wants to take Chloe and just run away. He's not cut out for this superhero crap. The bad guys never run out, it just gets worse and worse, more complicated and more dangerous. Cecil asks him to think about Chloe. What does she want to do? The man who killed her mother is still out there. The men who killed Dunford are still out there. Is she ready to just walk away? Gary thinks he's right. He needs to see this through to the end for Chloe's sake. Mecha Maid creates a robot body for her daughter so that she can have her own life, free of her mother. Elise was unhappy every time her mom would shut her down, but now she's her own android. After Gorg was defeated by Wolf-Man, pieces of him sank to the bottom of the sea, including the national landmark Stonehenge. The city wants to recover it so they can ship it back to the British government, but a couple of divers who went underwater have already been killed by something. Detective Damien Darkblood was called to investigate the murders, and he feels confident he can discover exactly what is happening to people who go down there. Zechariah breaks inside the mansion in the middle of the night and wants to kidnap Chloe, but Gary tries to stop him. He chases after them, but the vampire uses his mechanical arm to injure him. But things are about to get much worse because the Elder Brood arrives as well, claiming he's come to test him. The Elder claims that without his daughter, he is free of any distractions so they can fight in peace. But Wolf-Man doesn't want to do it. He only cares about saving his daughter. The Elder stops him, grabbing him by the leg and slamming him on the ground, claiming he won't be denied. Gary never asked for any of this, but he wasn't chosen because he was willing. He was chosen because he is worthy. He eventually retaliates, threatening to make the Elder pay for what he's done to his life, for what he's taken away from him. The Elder stops, saying this was the wrong move, but he will come back in 24 hours. Damien Darkblood figured out what had happened to the missing divers and called the Capes Incorporated to help deal with the situation. Apparently, Gorg wasn't fully defeated, but rather, his body was shattered into multiple smaller pieces, and he is trying to put himself back together. The pieces jump out of the water, but the Capes are ready to take them on. Wolf-Man is furious and wants to find Zechariah, and luckily, the tracking beacon that Mecha Maid put in his arm just became active again. The vampire took Chloe to an abandoned farm where he plans to drain her blood and turn her into a vampire permanently. She tries to trick him into untying her, claiming she still hates her dad and they can kill him together, but she was just trying to buy some time. Wolf-Man and the crew teleport to their location, surprising Zechariah from behind. He gets a couple of initial hits, ripping out one of his eyes and even biting his neck, but the fight is just beginning. Zechariah uses his mist abilities and surprises the werewolf from behind, slamming him on the ground. He then goes after Agent Hunter and decapitates him, while also dealing with Chloe and Mecha Maid. Suddenly the Elder Brood arrives, claiming Gary's 24 hours are up and it's time for his succession to begin. He wants him to face him. This is where his life ends, or begins. The Elder didn't come alone. The entire place is surrounded by tens of werewolves. Zechariah warns Wolf-Man, claiming the Elder is very dangerous and they need to join forces and take him down together. But this causes the Elder to lose his temper and attack him, stabbing through the chest and ripping out his heart. The vampire is instantly killed, causing his body to shrivel and turn to dust. Down in the Pentagon prison, the Actioneers are free from his control and revert back to their human state. They aren't vampires anymore. The Elder says that his daughter and friends are free to leave, but if they interfere, their safety is no longer guaranteed. The fight continues and the Elder slams Wolf-Man on the ground, threatening him with death. Gary's transformation wasn't an accident. The Elder's been following his life for years. When he was turned into a werewolf himself, he was driven by his lust for power, and his rise to power has nearly destroyed their kind. He is corrupted and had used his newfound powers to rule over those beneath him, but he's finally had enough. He wants Gary to be his replacement, and chose him for this exact thing. When he was first turned werewolf, there was not one Elder, but many. They ruled by the Council of Elders, and they even commanded the movement of civilization on Earth. They were all powerful, but he was never happy, so he killed the other Elders one by one, until he was the one true Elder remaining. But he did not lead well. Mankind eventually turned against the werewolves, and they were driven into hiding. He maintained control over his kind through fear, and over time, by becoming a legend. Many years ago, when he first ran into Gary, he observed him during his leisure time. He saw how compassionate he was with those less fortunate. He admired his devotion to his wife, and his courage and commitment to his family. Gary was also a good leader in the business field. He was the perfect candidate to replace him. He wouldn't be corrupted by the power of being an Elder like he was. So he made a choice and turned him into an Elder, just like he is. The fight continues as the Elder pushes him to his limits, trying to get him to fight back and kill him. Wolf-Man eventually loses control and cuts his throat, spilling his blood everywhere. The Elder's body is old and weak now. The healing factor won't do him any good. He wants Gary to watch him bleed to death and make sure he is truly dead. He doesn't want him to repeat the same mistakes he did. He wants him to help his people, give them their lives back. It wasn't always like this. They didn't always live in the shadows. They were once a great race, and they can be great once again. The Elder eventually bleeds out, and Wolf-Man takes his place, while the other werewolves watch in silence. Effective immediately, he becomes the new king, which gives him control over an entire army of werewolves. Cecil isn't sure if he should be worried or not, but Wolf-Man claims he's going to make their lives better by putting them to work. These people are looking to him to do the right thing, and it's time that someone made their lives worth living. Cecil talks to Chloe in private and gives her a sample of Zechariah's vampire blood, which will prolong her powers a bit longer. Gary invited Jacobson and his clan to come live in his mansion, and he is grateful, especially since most of them have never lived inside before. Somewhere, the vampire king himself, Dracula, is informed of the entire situation, remarking that he's happy about Zechariah's death. He was a thorn in his side for a very long time. The werewolves are now part of Wolf-Man's army, calling themselves Wolf Corps. He takes them on their first mission against the broken pieces of Gorg, who are trying to rebuild themselves into the giant monster as before.